In college football, sometimes the most important person on your staff is not the players on the field, but the one calling the shots. And no one so far has been more important to the success in Salt Lake City than Kyle Whittingham. 800-224-2004. 24-11 win last night for the Utah Utes as they begin the year off 1-0 over the Florida Gators. And we'll get into Florida a little bit down the line. But what I want to talk about here is Kyle Whittingham. Kyle Whittingham has been a staple throughout the likes of Salt Lake City for nearly 2 decades. Nearly 2 decades. He takes over for, sorry about that. He takes over for Urban Meyer in 2005, and he helps them translate from being a team that was in, if I'm not mistaken, what was it? The Mountain West? Yeah, they were in the Mountain West to the Pac-12. And he really dominated. He really was a staple of the industry. Like, when he was in the Mountain West, he had 3 back-to-back 10-plus win seasons. In 2008, he went 13-0. 2009, he went 10-3. 2010, he went 10-3 as well. All 3 years, they were ranked inside the top 25. Then they moved to the Pac-12. Naturally, there was going to be a little bit of regression because it's a higher level of competition. You got to be able to recruit at an elite level. He doesn't get off to the right positivity, but by 2014, 9 wins is on the table. Then 2015, 10 wins. 9 wins in 2016. 2018, 9 wins. 2019, 11 wins. 2021, 10 wins. Last year, 10 wins. Back-to-back Pac-12 title champions. Last night is the culmination of why you want to coach like Kyle Whittingham. Do you know how many starters were not playing in this game? No, I'm not saying Cam Rising. Everyone knew that Cam Rising, the torn ACL, was going to be a problem. He was not going to be ready to go. But they didn't have their starting tight end in Brayton Kuthi. They didn't have 8 total starters, including 3 on the defensive line. And they dismantled Florida through 4 quarters of action. Now, let's get this out of the way also. Florida shot itself in the foot on multiple occasions. 7 false starts. They had a punt return that was supposed to give them quality field position. Maybe they were going to end the drive. They had 2 number 3s on the field. You can't have 2 of the same numbers on the field. The entire coaching staff is sitting on the sidelines going, hey, let's go ahead and get the punt team out there. At what point are you just kind of sitting there and going, hey, why do we have 2 number 3? Call the timeout, Billy Napier. Go ahead and do that. They enforced pain and infliction on the Florida Gators quarterback in Graham Mertz. They took away the rushing attack for most of the game. 2 really good running backs in Montreal Johnson and in Trevor Etienne, the little brother of Travis Etienne. They averaged less than a yard a play. Less than a yard. Graham Mertz throws a horrendous interception in the red zone. Guess what? Bryson Barnes and Nate Johnson capitalize. They both rush for a score. And Kyle Whittingham on the first play of the game says, you know what? Let's set the tone. Let's let everybody know why we still are the team that means business in the Pac-12. Dials up a beautiful pass to Money Wells deep downfield, 60-plus yard bomb, 7-0. You do realize that once again, going into this year, we are not talking about Utah. We're not. We're talking about USC. USC is the front runner to take home the Pac-12 title, represent the conference in the college football playoff. Washington, my pick to win the Pac-12. Great returning production in guys like Michael Penix Jr. and Rome Odunze, and Jalen McMillan, and Money Polk. They have the talent to be able to go toe-to-toe with anybody, and they have the coach in Kalen DeBoer. We're talking about Oregon. Oregon brings in a new offensive coordinator, Will Stein from UTSA. But they do have the quarterback in Bo Nix, who at this point is basically closer to getting AARP than winning a Heisman Trophy. They do have great returning defensive production. They also have a coach that comes from the SEC in Dan Lanning. And a lot of people think that after last season, following a horrendous opening against Georgia, they may be the team to beat in the Pac-12 for 2024. You're talking about Chip Kelly. You're talking about even Colorado with primetime Deion Sanders. And Kyle Whittingham is just kind of sitting around going, hey, I exist. I'm here. I belong. He kind of does. If you were to go ahead and rank your top 10 coaches in college football, where would you put Kyle Whittingham? That's my first question for you. I would say he's no less than number 9. At this point, he has to be. Since joining the Utes in 2005. 155 and 74 wins. In conference play, he's 95 and 57. Not to mention, he's also been inside the top 10 of the AP poll 3 times. And he's been inside the top 25 of the AP poll 9 times. And this is a coach that once again enters the year with Utah being ranked, but nobody's picking them to go ahead and represent the conference in the college football playoff. And I understand why. I understand with what you lose in the running back room, what you lose with Dalton Kincaid at tight end, what you lost defensively, especially at the secondary with Clark Phillips. It's going to be a cause for concern, but not enough to where you can go ahead and count them out. Like we counted them out last year. Remember when Anthony Richardson walked into the end zone and they end up getting the win in Gainesville? And everyone said, all right, you know what? Same old Utah team. That Utah team ended up winning the Pac-12 title game. And they beat USC on 2 different occasions. And they were able to be dominant against basically everyone else they played besides Oregon. That's what Utah did last year. And they did the year before when they also went 10-4, winning once again the Pac-12 title and going 9-3 in the regular season. At some point, you get tired of the charade of hearing about all these other high-profile coaches and all these teams that know how to recruit. They're in better areas. They have better talent, better athletic complexes. Chemistry, continuity, consistency. That's what you get with Utah when they play. That's what you get with the likes of Kyle Whittingham as a coach. That's what you're going to expect every single season coming out of Salt Lake City. Great win last night for Utah. Absolutely another staple to put in the pocket for Kyle Whittingham and his resume of being the most underrated coach in college football. 800-224-2004. On the flip side, I got to talk about Billy Napier. Dude, I like you. I really do. I love what you bring to the table. I love what you've done as a recruiter. I know what you've been able to work with at the lesser tier level, non-Power 5. When you were at Louisiana, you were a staple that brought the Raging Cajuns to a rocket and rolling demeanor. But at some point, man, you can't just keep blaming Dan Mullen. Like all offseason, all I heard was that this was going to be a new Florida team. And that last year, the problems that occurred in Gainesville were because of Dan Mullen didn't like to recruit. Dan Mullen didn't like to roster construct. Dan Mullen made all these mistakes. Well, Dan Mullen's gone. And last night, most of the players that were on the field either were recruits that you were able to develop last season. Guys like Montrell Johnson, guys like Trevor Etienne, guys like Ricky Pearsall. And then there were transfers that you brought in. You as a coach said Graham Mertz, of all the quarterbacks in the transfer portal, Sam Hartman, Brennan Armstrong, Hudson Card, Casey Thompson, Peyton Thorne, countless others. The best one for you was Graham Mertz. And I'm not ready to go ahead and say that Graham Mertz can't be a guy that gets you to 6 wins, but you are Florida. You're Florida. You're not Florida Atlantic. You're not South Florida. You're not even, I would say, UCF going from the group of 5 to the Power 5 level where 6 wins in year 1 in a new regime is plausible. You're Florida. You can recruit. You can literally go up to any recruit's house, any 5-star talent in the state and say, you want to come to the state school? And 9 times out of 10, they're supposed to sign on the dotted line. And last year, you had a great transfer portal class. You had a great recruiting class. So then what is the excuse? What is it? And you can't blame Dan Mullen for your insufficiencies when it comes to not being prepared for this game. You had all offseason to prepare for this matchup. Week 1, Thursday night, kick off college football on the right note. Say that there is a new enforcer, a new change, a new chemistry for the Gators. And all you're seeing is miscues on the offensive line. 7 false starts. You lose points because if you don't see that there were 2 number 3s on the field. You have an entire coaching staff that can look up and down, left and right, sideways, slantways, and they can't see the same jerseys on the same field at the same time. That's on you. That's all on you. This is very similar to Will Muschamp. Will Muschamp was a great defensive mind when he was a coordinator underneath Nick Saban, underneath Mac Brown at Texas. And then he gets the opportunity to become a head coach, and everyone loves him based off of his personality. Everyone loves him because he's able to recruit. Everyone loves him because if he knows talent. But the problem was he never was able to develop it. As a defensive-minded guy, yeah, he did a great job and he had a great rapport with his players. But once you gave him the keys to the kingdom, he collapsed. And that's kind of how you feel about Billy Napier right now. You brought in the talent. You brought in the players from the transfer portal. You had your pick at the quarterback, and you're still seeing the same mental mistakes that held you back last year. Good luck, Florida. You're in for a long, long season.
In times of